of a team still playing in the postseason. So if you put together Cleveland and Kansas City and San Francisco and the LA Rams, names like Mike McDaniel, along with Kevin O'Connell with the LA Rams, McDaniel, the offensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, Eric Bieniemy, former running backs coach for the Minnesota Vikings, EB with the Kansas City Chiefs. That could be a name in play. DeMeco Ryans. That's a name that popped up kind of loudly a week and change ago. He's the defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, and Miss Courtney Cronin, who undoubtedly is incredibly busy with this news popping right in front of her previously scheduled radio engagement. She will be joining us soon. She's waiting for somebody to get her by the elevator.
And I believe somebody's on their way to get her.
Excellent. Corey, at Courtney R. Cronin, if you would like to follow her tweets, which have been enlightening. And over the weekend, there's a story at ESPN.com where she kind of went through Adofo-Mensah and Ryan Poles. What's going on? See? Ryan Poles of the Kansas City Chiefs, who recently was hired, in fact, yesterday by the Chicago Bears. And once again, Adam Schefter from ESPN popped that story. And Miss Courtney Cronin, amazingly, is in studio 9 to noon. I mean, I know the countenance. I see the countenance, the expression.
Oh, mine.
Yeah, I know it. I've seen it.
It's cold.
I like it, but I know it's all business. So I am greatly.
It's been a morning.
I'm greatly appreciative for you stopping by. When I texted you last evening saying, "Hey, if anything changes, we're all good here at 9 to noon. Let's go on the phone." Same thing this morning, and here you are, courtesy of Quick Trip and QuickTrip.com. I was just saying the most recent story that I read of yours, I believe yesterday, in detail went through Quasi Adofo-Mensah, and I think Ryan Poles was in there too.
Yeah, it was the one I ran on Monday.
Right, it was the one in the 1A or the battle down to the wire or whatever. Sure. And now, per reports, the Vikings have a new general manager with an elite business acumen, vice president of football operations for the Cleveland Browns, a Princeton grad, played basketball there, everything we've read, everything a lot of people know. When it comes to his role in non-traditional fashion as a general manager, CEO type of the Minnesota Vikings, what stream your elite football mind consciousness? What does that mean, and how do you think it can help? And good morning.
Good morning. I think this is an Andrew Miller hire. Like this is what that aligns with. I mean, Andrew Miller is a business operations systems processes
chief
guy.
Operating officer for the Minnesota Vikings.
Yes, he was hired from the Toronto Blue Jays. When the Minnesota Vikings made that hire in 2019 to replace Kevin Warren when he went to the Big Ten, they went the outside the box role. They hired Turnkey, the search firm that got them Andrew Miller. And this, to me, when I first saw the list of candidates, the 8 that came through, 2 weeks ago now, and you start looking at everybody's backgrounds, and there were some non-traditional types. And I mean, there were a lot of younger candidates, there were minority candidates, and then there's, you had a couple that would fall into the more traditional scouting evaluator realm, like the Ryan Poles of the world, the Monty Osenforts, Elliot Wolf, all of that. But Quasi's background is such a departure from what this team has had before in that role. And it's not necessarily like they needed to go polar opposite of what they had. I just think that when you look at the people that were on the search committee and Andrew Miller headed up this process, their backgrounds align a lot. And I think that there's a lot of value in that for a team that's trying to not just put a Band-Aid over things and try to move forward that way. Yep. They need new processes, they need new systems, and they need new integration throughout that entire process within the front office. Now, does this type of hire make you believe that he's not going to come in and start, pulling different parts of the front office, changing things, implementing systems? No. I mean, this is the type of hire it's not the safe hire in a way. Like this. And I'm not, and we can get into what happened with Ryan Poles, all those things, everything that, went down the last 24, 48 hours. But, when you looked from the beginning, this one is such an out of the box candidate that it's intriguing. It's a non-traditional member of the front office now in the highest executive role on the football side of the building, which I think could yield a lot of benefit for this team. And you look at what his role has been with Andrew Berry in Cleveland, he doesn't come in and pretend to be like top scout.
Yep.
That's not his job.
Yep.
And I remember going back the last week or so watching the press conference he did in March of 2020 when he was hired and relaying his experience from his time as the manager, then director of research and development on the football side in San Francisco, who, again, another organization that goes way the opposite way of the traditional football realm in terms of their front office. And they have a lot of these, analytic types. I know that's the buzzword. I sometimes think that carries a negative connotation because people see that and they think, oh, well, computers are trying to play football. That's not true.
Right.
But there's a place for it. And I do think that this is a hire that's going to make a lot of noise because it's such a departure from what the Vikings had. And it's just, you don't see this everywhere in the NFL.
Yeah.
I mean, Andrew Berry is probably maybe one of the closest to actually being what he's done in Cleveland, but you just don't see this in a lot of the roles.
Did Barry come from the Mets?
No, he came from Philadelphia.
From Philadelphia Eagles. Okay. Now with Adofo-Mensah and that story that I read of yours yesterday, can't exactly remember the quote, but it was like winning the margins. It's margins and algorithms. I mean, wasn't mentioned, but I mean, it's like when you're the CEO, the general manager, there has to, and you're not, he concedes he's not all 22 guy. I'm not scout guy. I'm not going to be in Mobile on the field with a stopwatch, which means delegation clearly is important. So now, would you speculate or do you know, is this the first of several moves that are coming?
I don't think we know that entirely.
Right.
And I want to preface this too, because no one knows how successful this person is going to be. I know that we're starting to see head coaches and general managers, or we haven't seen any head coaches yet. We're starting to see GMs fit into seats. The domino effect is coming. Mm-hmm. We can project that it's a great hire, but nobody will be able to be like, oh, this is a slam dunk. Like they've made it. They're going to be a great team next year.
I have no idea.
And that's the thing. Like we need to keep that in the forefront and keep mentioning that. Like we really have no idea how any of this stuff will work out. But this team hired Fran Foley once, and they thought that was going to work out, and you saw how that worked out. So making a correlation there. Like there's a lot of unknown still. I mean, we can look at his background and say, that's awesome. That could fix X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of unknowns, including the staff. Like that's the number one thing I have people ask me on social media about his background. And it's like, well, he doesn't have the personnel background. He has the analytics and the systems. And yes, he oversaw the evaluators in Cleveland, but not to where they're in UFA meetings and his voice carries the most weight. Like that's the thing where you have two directors of player personnel with Jamal Stevenson and Ryan Munnins.
Right.
I would imagine both of them are here in that same role. I don't know. The one thing that would be interesting is Quasi going to hire an assistant GM? Not every team has one. It's not a requirement. We didn't see one last year when George Payton went to Denver. Rick Spielman just made Munnins and Stevenson the co-directors of player personnel, but maybe he brings somebody with him. Maybe he's got ties, the notable ties that we know, and of course people know people all over the league, are to Cleveland and to San Francisco. So maybe I would imagine that he's probably not the only one, just given how this stuff works. He's probably not the only one coming in. He's the boss now. He can bring whoever he wants, assuming they don't get blocked. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when the Wilfs made the moves they made, firing Zimmer and Spielman, Rob Brzezinski, the money magician, was not only kept around, but I mean, I think you've said it, tweeted it, written it, something, or we've talked about it. But I mean, Rob had to have had a hand in the search and the finding and the interviews.
He was on the committee, yeah, 100%.
Along with Andrew Miller, the chief operating officer at all. But Andrew's been here a couple of years now, and very, very straightforward, very just kind of a transactional approach to things. And maybe that, is the way of the world in the National Football League and pro sports. But this hire off that completely makes sense. their director of analytics is Scott Kuhn. Right. And I don't know if anything, what will come of him and his department. Will it expand? Stuff like that. But then the next the next move, obviously, is the head coach.
Yeah.
And without any A-level steam before you got in, I'm like, I think the next Vikings coach is on a staff of a team that's still playing.
Well, everybody can draw the ties to DeMeco Ryans.
Or the offensive coordinator.
Or
McDaniel.
McDaniel, yeah. So that's naturally what we do when we try to figure out, okay, who might.
Or Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah, that's, the Rams, that's who I was thinking initially. The Rams OC. You can look at coaching trees. You can look at who's been attached to who at different points. And the DeMeco Ryans one makes sense because I know that Vikings were very impressed with what they did, the San Francisco 49ers defense in Green Bay, to put the Packers out of the playoffs. Don't think that doesn't carry weight. That does.
Right.
It's not just an optics thing. That means something.
DeMeco that name got hot and steamy like within the last 3 weeks, right?
I mean, he's very young too. He's a first-year coordinator. So I think that I would understand if people look at that and have some pause and say, okay, there's a first-time GM, somebody who hasn't done this before, who doesn't have the personnel background. You have to build parts of this team, and then you're going with a first-year head coach. I understand the trepidation there, but there's a reason that they got these interviews done the first round, all 8 of them, because they need to be able to talk to these people. If let's say the 49ers make the Super Bowl, they had to establish that initial contact. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to talk to a DeMeco Ryans until after the Super Bowl. So they did the right thing with that. Every GM candidate comes in with a portfolio, and the candidates that they have for this is who I would reach out to, my first, second, third, fourth choice for head coach. So I'm very curious when we have a chance to eventually talk with Quasi. What is his vision for a head coach? How does he envision that relationship working? Does he want to rely on his ties that he has in other places? But that's why I wouldn't just say it's not just DeMeco Ryans. I mean, certainly if you were asking for the odds-on favorite, it makes sense. But there are others out there. I just tend to think, like you, that they're still coaching right now.
Now, the Quasi Adofo-Mensah reportedly is the new general manager for the Minnesota Vikings. Adam Schefter is the first person to report it. At least that's what I saw. And the Vikings have not confirmed it, but I would imagine that would happen soon. We are discussing that with Miss Courtney Cronin from ESPN and ESPN.com on a very, very busy schedule today. So the next segment will be our final segment today with @Courtney R. Cronin.
I can stay.
Hey,
I've got
really?
time. Yeah.
I didn't want to be intrusive on your time, thinking that you're so.
I just looked at you like you killed my dog, saying it's the last segment. I just got here.
Yeah. Well, when you walked in, if you had seen the countenance of angst and disarray that I saw, I'm like,
it's 1 degree out, and my tank right now in my car is on empty. I'm a little worried about trying to make it to the gas station after this. That's where my head is at.
We have people to push, so we will send Sauce, Zach Halverson, and so on with you. But the way you looked at me, I was happy to get 7 minutes, so that's great news. @Courtney R. Cronin via Twitter, and we'll be back with some more Vikings conversation shortly, but first.
Yeah, the Fan is giving you an opportunity every hour to put $1,000 in your hand with the National Cash Contest. This hour's keyword is win. Use the keyword win. Go to KFAN.com, enter the keyword win. The keyword is win, W-I-N. Hope you win $1,000. KFAN.com. Good luck.
This is 9 to noon, live on iHeartRadio and KFAN, The Fan.
Ooh, baby, it's cold outside. Winter indeed has arrived. %, for up to 66 months on approved credit. New 2022s also arriving daily and already qualify for the $1,000 customer cash and 1.9% for up to 66 months on approved credit. Want something smaller? 2022 Ford Bronco Sports, Escapes, and Edges arriving daily as well. MetropolitanFord.com. Metropolitan Ford, your truck superstore.
KFAN Total Traffic.
From the Quick Trip Traffic Center is looking at the roads. A spin-out accident, right ditch on Lafayette Freeway, southbound at Thompson Avenue. We've got a couple of other accidents. Highway 10 eastbound, right shoulder at Ferry Street. Also reported a crash on 94 eastbound at 35W. Heavy traffic there starting at 394. That's traffic on the Fan. This report is sponsored by From Your Next Job at Gens Ryan.
Gens Ryan is hiring. Who? Experienced HVAC installers. Up to $5,000 hiring bonus. 100% insurance premiums company paid. Company provided van and power tools. Weekly paychecks and more. Apply now at gensryan.com.
And go to TimberTech and timbertech.com and spend just a couple of minutes taking a peek at the non-obvious approach to decking and porches and everything they do at TimberTech. This is a high-end group that wants you to be happy forever. So with the decking style and most importantly the material, it stands the test of time, and they work with only the best construction companies in the state of Minnesota. For a new deck, timbertech.com.
Make a resolution this year to have enough outlets so you don't have to fight with your spouse to get your phone charged in the kitchen. Call Early Bird Electric.
612-THE-BIRD. 612-THE-BIRD.
Early Bird, saving marriages throughout the metro and St. Cloud.
Nordo here. I got LASIK from the absolute best, Dr. Mark Lobanoff, about 5 years ago. And now he's built his next generation LASIK clinic in St. Louis Park. OVO LASIK and Lens. It's a beauty. When I was talking with him, I asked what it meant to buy local when it comes to LASIK and what the benefits might be.
Well, first, we've got the most advanced technology. So a lot of these corporate LASIK chains, they do not have Contura, topography-guided LASIK. The second thing is we're treating our friends and our neighbors. We live here in the community. OVO LASIK and Lens is locally owned, was built by local architects, local craftsmen. We are all about treating Minnesotans, and we care about their eyes. We're not a big, impersonal corporate LASIK chain.
Act now and receive $500 off, along with the OVO LASIK and Lens Best Price Match Guarantee. Go to ovoi.com, OVOEYE.com for your free LASIK evaluation today. OVO LASIK and Lens is the official LASIK provider of the Minnesota Wild.
Hammermaid's halftime sale is going on now. Take advantage of up to 50% off their shirts for a limited time. Shop at one of our 4 stores in Minneapolis or online at hammermaid.com. Don't own a Hammermaid shirt yet? Now is the time to experience for yourself what everyone is talking about. European fabrics with just the right amount of detail to make you stand apart from the masses. Shop now at hammermaid.com and save up to 50% off during their halftime sale. Limited time only. Don't just wear a shirt. Wear a Hammermaid shirt.
Hey, it's Chris Hockey here for Builders and Remodelers. Minnesota living is great, but these cold winter nights can be tough, especially if your old doors and windows allow that cold inside. Builders and Remodelers offers the highest rated windows and doors in the industry at the same and often lower prices than other inferior performing products. And for a limited time, before prices go up, you'll get last year's prices with our last chance sale. Plus, discounts of up to 25% off. And no interest, no payments until 2023. Go to buildersandremodelers.com today. Nobody does it better.
Hey, Ray Magliozzi here. Have you ever cooked a really fine gourmet meal? Yeah, me neither. But I'm told it all comes down to the ingredients. And when I need ingredients to improve my car, the place I go is eBay Motors. Whether you roasted your last transmission, graded your current floor mats, or pureed your side view mirror on a lamppost, eBay Motors has the right parts at the right prices. 122 million of them. And by the way, if you recently fired up your grill, don't worry, eBay Motors has grills too. eBay Motors. Let's ride.
Kansas City wins it 42-36 in overtime.
Kansas City and Cincinnati, Sunday at 2 on FM 100.3 KFAN, Minnesota's home for football.
Programming on the Fan brought to you in part by Quick Trip.
Courtney Cronin, ESPN.com, covers the Minnesota Vikings for said website. Twitter handle at Courtney R. Cronin. She also does work on ESPN Radio. I don't know when you last worked. You can listen to that on the free
Sunday.
Free iHeartRadio.
It was my last show.
Was it in the evening? Was it after all the games?
Oh my God, yeah. 8 to midnight. So we had a lot to talk about because
How
we
about
were
that?
on the last hour we were on was the fourth quarter
Wow.
of Bills Chiefs, which is
Yeah.
it's wild because they don't want you doing play-by-play on radio. And of course, I'm
Yeah.
not qualified to do that, but
No,
when
it's-
I have two other hosts on and
You
someone
technically can
reacts
get in
to
trouble.
something, yes, and
Yes,
someone
I've been
reacts like,
told that.
what just happened? Okay,
Right.
we've got to wait till the play is over
Yeah.
and all that, and be like, oh, by the way,
Right.
Josh Allen, 4th and 13, and all these things.
Did
So-
you see the NFL Films tweet with Travis Kelce talking to Patrick Mahomes about what defense?
Yeah.
How does he know that? And it worked out exactly with Tyreek Hill. He's like, here's the deal: fake outside, come inside. I'm gonna be in front of you.
Smart football players.
I'm
right?
gonna, but they. I mean, I don't want this to be an indictment on a super kind man, Leslie Frazier. But I mean, was it really that predictable at that moment? Clearly, it was.
When you hear that, it definitely feels like it. But my goodness, I mean, that whole. Do we think that was the best divisional playoff weekend ever? I think so.
Yes.
Like, I kept trying to rack my brain on it in the last because the miracle game
Yeah.
was divisional playoffs, but I can't for the life of me remember anything else other than
I don't either.
that game.
Yeah, I can't honestly.
An instant classic for sure, especially that one to cap off the weekend. It was
But hasn't
wild.
it all been good?
Yes, it's made up for wild card weekend.
Yeah, Chiefs Steelers was terrible, stuff like that before in the wild card weekend. But I leave the weekend and Bills Chiefs unbelievable. All the games were great. I find myself happiest for Matthew Stafford. And just you persevere and you're dedicated as long as he is, never being the offseason A topic of being clandestine and covert and sending mixed messages and playing the game that Aaron played last year.
Sure.
And staying there and sucking it up and just trying to help the Detroit Lions get over the hump. And then he gets the opportunity to leave, and here he is in the conference championship game after bouncing Tom Brady. I just think I just feel really, really good for him. Do you?
Yeah, I do. I think that it paid off all of the belief that the Rams had, and for him to not melt down
Right.
in the playoffs has been huge because there's jobs on the line. There's, they traded away their entire, next 3 years, 2 first-round draft picks, third-round draft pick in 2021. Like, there was so much that went into the Matthew Stafford trade to begin with that it had to work out. It has to work out. Now, is it Super Bowl or bust for them? It certainly feels like it.
It has to be.
But watching, the play, I just thought it's kind of disappointing with Todd Bowles in the cover zero, and you don't leave Cooper Kupp lined up one-on-one with the safety. That's a recipe for disaster. But that play right there was awesome. And watching Matthew Stafford walk off the field after spiking the ball, he pumps his fist, and then hearing a very un-Matthew Stafford after the game where he talked about snatching people's souls.
Ooh.
Where did that come from?
And Ndamukong Suh got into his heart.
Like, this is not the Matthew Stafford that I knew from Detroit. Like, can you imagine Kirk saying, like, I'm snatching people's souls out there? Like, that was...
No.
I mean, and I kind of, personality-wise, I kind of equate the two just in terms of you're never going to get them super revved up outside of, a couple viral moments we've seen from Cousins, and you like that. But snatching people's souls, it's like, go ahead, Matthew Stafford. That was a great line. I like that.
Does the football snob in you, if there is a football snob in you, does any of it, the fact that the Rams played the game free agency wise and trading wise and giving up the heart and soul and blood of an organization, their draft picks, the way they've played it, and they might win the Super Bowl, does that bug you in any way?
Not in the slightest.
Why?
I think that we need to get away from the notion that build through the draft, that always works. There's like a 40% hit rate on draft picks. Let's be honest.
All of them?
I mean, by and large, look around the league. That's why, when you look at Rick Spielman's draft strategy, that's why he wanted the more bites at the apple metaphor. He always talked about that. You're not going to, it doesn't yield as big of a success rate as when you have proven players and you go out and get the talent that you want. And I kind of feel like the Rams are maybe the outlier for sure, that they decided that first-round draft picks, be damned. Send them to Detroit, get your guy that you think is a transcendent quarterback. I wonder if this is the trend that more teams are going to follow here. You've seen teams do that and fail epically, like the New York Giants, but it works for a team like the Los Angeles Rams. So I don't think every team is going to be as aggressive and as bold and willing to do that, because that is a huge risk that you take on, that, hey, this has to work within this time frame, this window. And if it doesn't, people are probably losing their jobs. But they took a gamble. I mean, the Von Miller thing itself, that kind of spurred, then Odell Beckham Jr. came over there. Like, there was a lot there that showed you, hey, they're going all in. And a lot of teams have gone all in and failed, but theirs just has happened to work out so far.
I wonder if George Payton, general manager for the Broncos, if he was looking to amass some of those Von Miller-related picks, because it was a good deal for Denver for the upcoming offseason, where they were very much in on trading for Aaron Rodgers.
Yep.
And next level Goody, the general manager, he wouldn't budge. He just would not budge every step of the way, and he got what he wanted. He got Aaron back. They got the 1 seed. They got the week off. They got everything they want, and now they're done. So with that said, I firmly believe the Broncos make a major push for Aaron Rodgers this offseason, and I think it has a better chance this offseason. Do you?
Because they have the draft capital now, right?
Right.
I don't know. It's interesting.
And Green Bay's salary situation.
Sure. It's interesting that we haven't heard the full compensation, like what it would take for Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, we've heard that for a year now. Oh, it's going to take this many first-round draft picks for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And then this many second-round picks. Like, they've had the deal package. It's just getting a team to sign off on it and agree to a deal.
Yeah.
We haven't heard what the Packers want for Aaron Rodgers. Like, how many first-round draft picks is it?
Right.
What else is it? Like, in terms of taking on his salary, an outright trade, how does that work? And then what happens to someone like Devontae Adams?
Yeah.
Does he end up in Vegas? Because it kind of feels like that's where that's trending. If he, if he doesn't, if Aaron Rodgers isn't in Green Bay, you think Devontae Adams can stay in Green Bay? No way.
Right.
But Denver kind of feels like the favorite if there's anybody other than Green Bay. But let's all read between the lines of what Aaron Rodgers said after the game, that he doesn't want to go somewhere that's in a rebuilding phase at this point of his career. So I think that you could probably rule out a Pittsburgh. I don't think that's far off to say that they're in a rebuilding phase. They have a lot of needs that they have to address in the draft. Cornerback, inside backer, offensive line. They've got a lot of needs. So personally, I think that everything's perfect for him in Green Bay as far as the setup for finish out your career here, unless he looks at it with Matt LaFleur and says, we've hit our ceiling. What is it, 39 games in 3 years that they won, and they still haven't gotten to the Super Bowl? Maybe he looks at that and says, I need a new coach, and they wouldn't know who the coach is in Denver yet. It feels like it's going to be Dan Quinn, but who knows? They feel like the only team realistically that could pull this off, unless, I know the Saints have always been rumored as a hot spot for him, but got to factor in where Russell Wilson's going to go too, right?
LaFleur's work at critical points of the NFC title game last year and the divisional round this year, I don't want to say is embarrassing, because there's so much that goes into the job, but he's 0 for 2 in my book. When you roll out that field goal team against Tampa, now you pissed off the identity of the franchise for the entire offseason, so much so that I was told they didn't even talk for a long time. Aaron was so upset. Well, now for Aaron to pigeonhole and eyeball Devontae Adams, as much as he did in the fourth quarter of that game against the Niners, I know he does have a bunch of HOF talent around him. For the head coach to permit the quarterback to single-handedly identify one guy on every single play, and it was so predictable that the Niners began jumping routes, thinking that, hey, I can jump an A-Rod route and get to the end zone. I can't believe Matt signed off on that. I think Aaron went rogue on the game. I'm not kidding you. And
I could see it.
And if LaFleur could not get a hold of that because he doesn't have the confidence to eyeball Aaron Rodgers and say, stop it. And I don't believe he does. And it got out of hand. That offensive approach in the fourth quarter by the Packers was out of hand. And if you're the head coach permitting that to happen, shame on you, with all due respect.
I'm trying to find a tweet that I retweeted from Monday. I think it was from Michael Lombardi. It hit me. Here it is. 10 men on the field for the most important play of the game, and no one said anything. No one on the Packers sideline knew.
Great point.
That this is all the evidence you need to understand that there's no, quote, head in head coach. And to add insult to injury, they're coming out of a timeout. That's 1 to 2 minutes of real time that you have to figure that out. Kind of feels like there's some disconnect there.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised that we haven't heard yet another fall guy, meaning the special teams coordinator, to my knowledge, unless this has been, I've been in my, little bubble over here trying to report in the GM search. I don't believe their special teams coordinator has been fired, but
well,
they had the 32nd worst. They're the worst. They're ranked 32nd special teams unit in the NFL this season. You don't think that's going to come back and bite you some point?
Speaking of the Packers, I'm like, I think the next Vikings coach is on a team still in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not eliminating Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator for the Packers, from that equation. I mean, but before all of the Quasi Adofo-Mensah, before everything, like right at the end of the games, if somebody had been like, it's coaching Russian roulette, and we're going to spin this thing, and if you don't get it right, you die, I would have said Nathaniel Hackett at that point. So now I'm swaying a little bit with somebody with the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kirk is very fond of Kevin O'Connell. They were together in Washington. I think
fond of Raheem Morris too.
Right. Wow. That's right. He was the defensive coordinator in Washington.
Yeah,
right?
and he's the only coach that,
Right.
I mean, very few have coached on both sides of the ball, and he has the expertise and knowledge.
You remember last year, of course you do, you were there and you're elite. Falcons roll in their win list. Dan Quinn had just gotten fired. Raheem Morris is the
first
interim.
win.
Okay, Deion Jones picks off Kirk, and then they start opening up early. I mean, it was an awful Vikings game. Did you happen to notice the Falcons bench like jumping up and down and hooting and hollering because things were going well? And I looked at Bursich, the analyst on the Vikings radio network, after Atlanta opened up a two-score lead. I'm like, look at these guys. How badly did they want Dan Quinn gone? I mean, this is unbelievable. Raheem Morris came in and just energized
he
it.
was the interim last year, and he got a lot of support from players who wanted to see that interim tag removed.
I would bet Nathaniel Hackett. Now, that's not that he would take it. I would put Nathaniel Hackett 1, a Niner 2. I can't do that. I would put Hackett 1.
Okay.
But I think, how would you do it? Like if you were to prioritize Adofo-Mensah moving forward and having the biggest say in the next coach of the Vikings, who would it be?
Well, there's 5 let's just look at the candidates that they've already interviewed, because you never know. Maybe there's somebody that Quasi wants to bring in. Like, that's his prerogative. He's the general manager of the team.
Right.
And maybe it's not one of the 8 that they've already interviewed, but 5 of the 8 are defensive coordinators.
Yeah.
I don't know. If I'm putting odds on this, it feels like that's the way to go.
But it would fly in the face of the predictable flip. I mean,
and that doesn't matter, right?
That's a good point.
The defense needs. I know what Mark Wolf said about he wants his team to be a competitive team next year. Mm-hmm. The defense needs to be rebuilt. You have so much. You have 8 or 9 bubble players in terms of guys that might either be released as cap casualties, might free agents that are not coming back potentially. So much hinges on the defensive side of the ball. They rebuilt it last year and they spent so much money. And what did it get you? The 31st defense in the NFL.
Yeah,
not good. So I think I understand where people see the need. Like, okay, go to the opposite end of the spectrum, because you had Zimmer here for 8 years. You had an older coach, a defensive coach, so go young in offense. That's just not. I get it from like a very surface level understanding of it, but it's not reality. You don't have to always go polar opposites of what you had. That doesn't, especially when they're the candidates that they have out there. Mm-hmm. There's some intriguing defensive candidates. There really are. Like Raheem Morris, obviously has coached both sides of the ball, but DC for the Rams has had 2 unbelievable games. Really strong candidate. Same thing with DeMeco Ryans and what he's done as a young candidate. I mean, he's his first-year coordinator. Do you want to go the route of taking a first-year coordinator and putting him in the seat as head coach? I don't know, but there's a lot of really good ones. So
excellent points.
If I'm handicapping it, I'd say probably DeMeco Ryans 1.
Mm-hmm.
And this is without having spoken with Quasi Adofo-Mensah, and getting his strategy. I mean, we'll hopefully find out at some point, where he lies on this head coaching thing and how much control he's going to have. Like, you'd think he'd be the one directing the search, and he will be. But, the natural tie there makes sense. And everything, the buzz that I've heard around that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then probably put Kevin O'Connell number 2. I'm just going off the candidates that they've interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
Him number 2, and then maybe a Raheem Morris 3.
Yeah. This is Courtney Cronin, ESPN.com, at Courtney R. Cronin via Twitter. She posted a story at 9:30 this morning that Quasi Adofo-Mensah, the former vice president of football operations for the Cleveland Browns, is the new general manager for the Minnesota Vikings. Expect him to speak within the next couple of days, so you can get a chance to meet him that way. Now, next will be head coach for the Minnesota Vikings. That's what we're discussing now. Plus the playoff action from the weekend gone by, and a preview of the conference finals coming up this weekend with Miss C, Courtney Cronin. It's Paul Allen at KFAN.
It's your midday soundtrack.
Tell me something good.
This is Paul Allen at 9 to noon.
Tell me that you love me, yeah.
On The Fan.
With up to 30% of number one diesel for maximum cold weather protection, and it's very cold outside right now because diesel fuel is weather sensitive. The colder it gets, if your fuel is not protected by additives and the right additives, it can begin to gel. Gelling causes the restriction of fuel to pass through filters, causing the truck to lose power and eventually quit, possibly causing damage and lack of productivity by your rig. Don't let that happen to you. Get the Tundra Max, sit back, and listen to some football conversation at Quick Trip and QuickTrip.com.
The Fan wants to help put $1,000 in your hand. Listen for the keywords weekdays for your shot to win $1,000 right here on FM 100.3 KFAN, The Fan. That's every weekday from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. On The Fan.
Hey, it's Guardsy inviting you to the Minnesota RV Show at Hilltop Camper and RV, February 2nd through the 5th for the lowest RV prices of the year. You can visit me on the 5th from noon to 2 at Hilltop's Fridley location. Visit themnrvshow.com for more details.
I'm John Gonzalez, the host of SI's new podcast, Sports Illustrated Weekly. Sports Illustrated has delivered some of the best storytelling in sports for 70 years. And now that continues on our show. Each week, we'll dive deep into the best stories from around the sports world. We'll ask the questions that we're all wondering and push for the answers we all want. Sports Illustrated Weekly is available every Wednesday on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe now.
Meat Sauce here. Here's a New Year's resolution for 2022. Eat more pizza. Specifically, 7th Avenue Pizza. Their new meatball and pepperoni and 5 cheese are in stores now. Find out where you can buy it at 7thavenuepizza.com. If your store doesn't have it, ask for it.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack. Sure, you can post your job to some job board, but then all you can do is hope the right person comes along, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter doesn't depend on candidates finding you. It finds them for you. Its powerful technology identifies people with the right experience and actively invites them to apply to your job. You get qualified candidates fast. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you what you're looking for. The needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
Man, if I got a taste for barbecue, happy 2022. Larry Fitzgerald inviting you to bring the year in right at Dickey's in Eagan. Drive-in or take-out, catering, daily specials. Gotta love barbecue. Dickeys.com.
Mike Capel here, serial entrepreneur with words from another happy payroll customer.
I've used it for a year now, and I've worried 0 time. I just enter in the time, it's calculated, and it's taken out of bank account, and it's just done. I love it.
Visit us at patriotsoftware.com. Use promo code RADIO and get 2 months of payroll free. That's patriotsoftware.com.
Accounting and payroll, keep your time and money. Oh,
It's a new year, and for businesses, that means a new start. Whatever the year ahead holds, now Comcast Business is making it easy to get going with the Ready, Set, Save sale. Get started with fast and reliable internet and voice for $64.99 a month and save with a 2-year price guarantee. Switching is easy with flexible installation times. And you'll also get backing from an expert team 24/7, so you can focus on planning the year ahead. Plus, for even more value, ask how to get a $500 prepaid card with qualifying internet. Get a great deal for your business with the Ready, Set, Save sale today. Comcast Business, powering possibilities. Limited time offer. Restrictions apply. New Comcast Business 35 megabits per second internet and one voice mobility customers only. Early termination fee applies. Equipment, taxes, and fees extra and subject to change. Prepaid card offer ends 2/14/22. Call or go online for details.
Selling a home is one of the most stressful and confusing times of your life. Confusing ads for guaranteed market value offers. And it's confusing because the realtor is charging you 6% and they are working for you and helping you get the most for your home. But their costs are fixed. Photography, marketing, in-ground signage, all fixed. So why charge you a percentage of the home's value? Shift removes the confusion. A fixed listing fee of $5,000 for amazing service and results. Minnesota home sellers saved over $1 million in 2021 with Shift. Call Shift and get all of the information you need so you can make the best decision for you. Call 651-244-HOME. That's 651-244-HOME. Or go to shift2sell.com. That's shift2sell.com. Shift Real Estate has salaried, full-time, experienced agents. So get the service and results you expect and hope for while paying a $5,000 flat listing fee with Shift Real Estate. 651-244-HOME or shift2sell.com. That's shift2sell.com.
Yes, Miss Tubbs. No problem. I'll call someone about the plumbing.
One of Beatrice's properties needs a new superintendent.
Custodial team is not...
Someone with handyman superpowers and a concierge alter ego.
Does anyone know any good electricians near Parkville?
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Instant Match instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Be romantic and give her the popular 24-karat gold or platinum dip roses that last forever from Arthur's in 20 colors from $79.
This report is sponsored by Your Next Job at Emerson.
Fan Forecast.
It's going to warm up throughout the day, maybe into the 20s this evening.
Work for one of the world's most admired companies and positions starting at $18 per hour. Up to $2,000 to $4,000 sign-on bonus and amazing benefits at Emerson. They are hiring for all shifts in Shakopee, Chanhassen, and Eden Prairie. Apply at emerson.com. Emerson, consider it all.
Now back to the 651 Carpets, home of the Next Day Install Studios. On the Fan.
Mahomes gets the shotgun snap, pumps, throws for the end zone to Kelsey, adjusting, makes the catch, touchdown! Travis Kelsey with a touchdown in the back right corner of the end zone. Kansas City wins it 42-36 in overtime.
Now, the Chiefs beating the Bills the way they did, it was not Minneapolis Miracle-esque, but it was very, very exciting. It was very, very emotional, very celebratory for the winning team. And they get the next game at home, where the Vikings had to go to Philly. But, you know, I marry myself to these takes early in the week. And if it doesn't change, then shoot, I mean, I might load up on fuel and head south on 35. But with that said, I think Cincinnati's going to jump Kansas City early in this game. But I'm not going to be grandstanding announcer guy to like ride it to the wire. The Bengals are going to win the game. I think Cincinnati can do a good job to keep it close. The way they're constructed, and even with that offensive line, permitting as many Titans to get through. And in case we had forgotten, Jeffrey Simmons is
a monster,
otherworldly.
You know, I covered him in high school, right?
In Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. He was one of my Dandy Dozen kids.
Was he unbelievable?
Yes.
Like blindside guy, both sides of the ball?
Like, it's crazy how many people that are currently or were in the playoffs that I covered. Cam Akers was the person I gave Mr. Football to my last year there.
Yeah.
Daryl Henderson, I don't think he's not playing for the Rams right now, but he was a Mr. Football for us too.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Simmons, A.J. Brown.
Right.
All these people.
And you wrote for something Courier?
The Clarion Ledger.
Clarion, that's what it was.
2013 to 2016.
That's
So
sweet.
it's crazy. When I watch him, like,
Yeah.
I knew him when he was like 14.
Yeah, I think I like the construction, the ball controls construction of Cincinnati.
Mhm.
Human nature, I believe, is fair to put into this at this stage of the equation from an emotional and physical standpoint. Where KC, I mean, the next game is KC knows what their prize looks and feels like. Cincinnati does not.
Yeah.
So Kansas City and Mahomes and Reed, that they know how to pace this thing. So you go ahead and get all wound up and be nuts and everything and open up 10. We're going to pass you like you're tied to a post in the third quarter because of the way they just construct games, and I'm very excited for that game. Now, with Quasi Adofo-Mensah, the new general manager for the Minnesota Vikings, former vice president of football operations for the Cleveland Browns, a non-traditional approach has been taken. You can read about it via Courtney's story at ESPN.com. With the new general manager, what's he getting into? I mean, just stream it. Salary cap, players, whole thing.
He's got a lot. That's why it's good that they got somebody hired now. And I know that people think, oh, it's the offseason. There's a ton of time until free agency. Not really. Like, they've got a lot of decisions that they have to start ironing out. And, the rest of the teams in UFA meetings, and this new general manager has to come in and be part of that process. Got to get a head coach in place. So first order of business is hire a head coach. You'd like to think that move would happen sooner rather than later. And by later, I mean after the Super Bowl. Like, hire the person, and whether they're still coaching or not, just make sure that you have it done. But roster-wise, the biggest personnel decision he has to make is Kirk Cousins' contract. And do you stay or do you go? Do you try to field trades, or do you try to keep him in the fold for one more year? And I was on Barrero's show on Sunday, and there were several people who, when I mentioned that, like, I think it actually makes sense. Like, I'm not advocating for it, but like, I can understand why the Vikings would keep Cousins in the fold for 2022, because you have to look around at what your other options are. Are you so confident that you're going to be able to pull off a trade? And, who else would you go get at this point? Would you try to finagle something with I'm literally trying to put the pieces together in my head right now. Do you try to finagle something with Las Vegas? Carr has a $19 million cap hit next year. Trade some pieces that way. This is all just where my brain was.
Yep.
And it's, you're going to go get Malik Wilson, the quarterback?
Liberty?
Right. Is that
Gabe Henderson scout him?
Yeah. I mean, I guess he would know him.
Well, Gabe knows him really well.
He played
told
there.
I had no idea who the kid was last year. Gabe told me about him. I watched him. I'm like, are you kidding me with this kid? He's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a heck of an arm, and he's an athlete too. But I say all this to say, with the Cousins decision that they have to make, it's not just as seamless as, oh, he's so expensive, get rid of him, dump him.
Yeah.
If you want to field a competitive team, you need a competent quarterback. You need a competitive quarterback, and Kirk is all of those things. Now, is he very pricey? And would people look at this and say, well, look at what happened with Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans? Like, that's what an average to good quarterback gets you in the postseason. The Vikings don't necessarily have to make this a long-term thing, but to field a competitive team, if that's the route that ownership wants to go next year, that's kind of, I personally would rather be a GM coming in on a tear-down rebuild, or at least a rebuild like the Bears, what they're doing right now. But it ups the ante of, hey, we have to stay competitive. How do we do that? Well, the quarterback is the most important position. So if you are going to keep him in place, that's a decision that Quasi has to make ASAP and start working from there, because you're starting to look at other pieces of the roster, the defensive side, potentially restructuring a couple contracts here and there for veterans, saying goodbye to people as cap casualties. There's a lot there.
Courtney, when Ryan Poles was hired as general manager for the Bears yesterday, was that a blow to the Vikings' leverage? In that now, I mean, if per your story with Adofo-Mensah and Poles, the one I read a couple of days ago, and I believe it to be 100% accurate, and then Poles bolts to Chicago, well, you're kind of left with one who can dictate the tempo of the years and the money and the whole thing. I mean, unless you have somebody in your back pocket you liked as much.
That you could bring in for another interview?
Correct. But I don't believe they did.
No. To my knowledge, on Sunday, that there really wasn't any, when it was starting to trend towards Quasi, because here's how I understand the whole thing unfolding. So Joe Schoen gets hired Friday morning in New York. He's the first general manager to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I had heard roughly Thursday noonish that Ryan Poles was expecting an offer from Minnesota. And I believe it wasn't until Saturday that we find out Ryan Poles is going to take the second interview in Chicago. So if he was a finalist. So he was one of two favorites to land this job. Like I never reported that he was the favorite, but he's one of two because he was a finalist for this job. That makes you think that there might have been something that happened potentially with the offer that came through where it's like, okay, that he was expecting an offer on Friday or Thursday, whenever, end of week. And then something happens and he's like, well, I'm going to go take the second interview in Chicago. Now, Poles' interview in Minnesota was supposed to be today, Wednesday, and Quasi's was Tuesday. Clearly, Chicago, in a move to try to secure who they want, because they interviewed 15 general manager candidates, I believe. There were 15, and it was Morocco Brown from Indy and Omar Khan from Pittsburgh were the last two. I believe it was yesterday, actually, but Poles was the guy for them. You make that offer and you secure it, knowing that he could come up to Minnesota and just take the offer here. So I think it was, I never was under the impression that like, okay, Poles backs out, they're going to take one of the other six that they had, that they said that they didn't initially have as finalists, and bring one of those people in. Now, there may have been some want to from people on the committee to maybe open it back up, or people who were like, part of this process, but that never came to fruition. And I think that shows you just the strength of Quasi as a candidate, especially for someone like an Andrew Miller, who's the person who headed up this entire process with the search committee of both, GM and head coach. And it's done, from everything that I understand, it's been a very organized, really well done process by him.
Yeah.
That if this is your guy, don't play around. Sign him right now. And I know that there's some people who have asked, well, why did it take so long? GM contracts are not player contracts. And, Ryan Poles' contract got done pretty quickly. Quasi's, the team, to my knowledge, I've been sitting here for an hour. I've not seen them announce it yet. So
nope, hasn't happened yet.
There's still stuff. The stuff takes a while to get ironed out. But I think it was a good sign that, you'll hear in the coming days, in the coming weeks, I assure you, you will hear a lot of different takes on who their actual favorite was.
Yeah.
I implore people, think about who's actually pulling the strings on the hire.
Oh, I think they got exactly who they wanted.
I do too.
Yeah, I think that there was a decision maker there whose name has been mentioned the last hour, who identified this guy, fought for this guy, didn't fight for him, but he's like, no, he's in the mix.
Yeah, sure.
We're gonna chat with him at the end, if not last. And I think that was the preference of definitely a big time decision maker over there.
And I think with Poles too, you have to look at the dynamic of the other people on the committee or who have been in the search process for, all the interviews. Ryan Munnins, Jamal Stevenson, Rob Brzezinski would effectively be hiring their boss.
Yeah.
And a personnel guy from where you've been in a department that is, you had the top scout as your GM for 16 years and Rick Spielman. So you can understand if football people, and I'm not saying that they're not qualified to think outside the box too, but that makes sense from an evaluator perspective of getting somebody to build a team and know that you're not having to bridge the gap with somebody that doesn't know your process, know all your the way that you guys have done business for so long. So there will be people who say, oh, Ryan Poles was always a favorite. There will be others who say, oh, Quasi Adofo-Mensah was always a favorite. Depends who you ask and where and what camp that's coming out of.
Brilliant. That's Courtney Cronin. Thank you very much for the time on a busy schedule. At Courtney R. Cronin to learn about her schedule when she's not writing, like doing TV on ESPN with quick hits, radio, stuff like that. And thanks to Quick Trip and QuickTrip.com. She joins 9 to noon and Bumper to Bumper with Barrero during the playoffs and through the Super Bowl. Chris Finch, coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves, joins us next.
This is 9 to noon, live on iHeartRadio and KFAN, The Fan.
KFAN, Total Traffic.
From the Quick Trip